السلام عليكم. أرحب بكم وأنتم تجتمعون مجدداً تحت مظلة وايز للتداول حول موضوعات جديدة وجديرة بالبحث. كما توجه لكل من السيدة الأولى في الولايات المتحدة ميشيل اوباما والسيدة الأولى في الجابون سيلفيا بونغو أنديمبا بترحيب خاص. وأقدر لكم جميعاً حضوركم وايز الذي بات منبراً عالمياً لتطوير آليات الابتكار في التعليم. كما بذل جهداً مثمراً لتطوير عدد من السياسات ذات الصلة بالتقارير البحثية. ويشهد وايز هذا العام نقاشاً معمقاً بشأن كيفية الاستثمار من أجل التأثير نحو تحقيق تنمية مستدامة وشاملة من خلال التعليم. وقبل أن أبدأ خطابي الذي حاولت فيه أن أضع يدي على الجرح في تحليل ونقد الواقع العربي وبالأخص حالة التعليم، أستأذنكم في أن ألجأ إلى اللغة الإنجليزية لكي يكون التلقي مباشراً حتى نتقاسم آنية الصور الذهنية ونتجنب سباق الكلمات بين الحديث والترجمة. So, as you have just heard, I have switched to English to make sure we are all tuned into the same wavelength without static or interference. Let me begin by confessing. In this region, we are not only paralyzed, but going backwards at the speed of light. Ironically, had we just been going backwards, we would be better off. For example, prior to the first Gulf War in 1991, Iraq's primary enrollment rate was at 100%. In fact, Iraq was awarded the UNESCO International Literacy Prize in 1982. And today, a recent UNESCO report estimates there are at least 3 million primary-age children out of school in Iraq and Syria alone. I feel both sad and bitter, with a heavy weight on my conscience when I remember the faces of Iraqi scientists and educators who came to me after the occupation of Iraq, bleeding for protection from assassination. This was a period when many educators were intentionally targeted in an active attempt to destabilize the nation and disrupt the educational infrastructure. We formed a committee for the protection of Iraqi scientists, and we did everything we could, down to providing them with bulletproof vests. But later, we lost communication with them, and one by one, they were terminated. This encouraged us to try even harder. So in 2010, a coalition of nations, which included the state of Qatar, introduced a UN resolution on the right to education in emergency situations at the UN General Assembly. It affirms the human right to education and access to it during crisis and conflict, and urges states to fulfill their obligations under international law to respect civilians and not to attack teachers, students, and education facilities. Security Council Resolution 1998 was adopted in July 2011, which makes attacks on schools and hospitals a trigger violation for the UN's monitoring and reporting mechanism for children and armed conflict. Such a violation can result in armed forces or groups being added to the UN Secretary General's list of shame and penalized accordingly. But what are we doing to enforce these resolutions? Why do we watch perpetrators get away without even slightest penalty? Let me be frank. It is not only Iraq or even Syria and Palestine which are targets of attacks on education. Between 2009 and 2012, there were at least 30 countries which were heavily affected by attacks in schools. So, this is a global problem. And one step in the solution to this problem is ensuring that we have up-to-date, reliable, and verified data which we can use to better plan our intervention programs to support children living in conflict zones and to help them pursue their education. Holding perpetrators, whether state or non-state actors, accountable and forcing them to take full responsibility of their deeds, no doubt, will serve as a deterrent to others. Therefore, mechanisms to enforce this accountability through both financial reparations and punishment from the international community of nations must be seriously considered and put in place. Ladies and gentlemen, education is under attack. The issue of accountability and punishment for attacks on education must be considered in the implementation of the framework for action of the new Education Sustainable Development Goal, the SDG 4, agreed upon last September. As we meet here today, another meeting is taking place in Paris to approve this action plan. Its adoption must result in real chances to consolidate our commitment and efforts to find new practical methods capable of achieving our priorities. And one thing we know for certain. The SDGs seem like a dream in MENA, where we experience the nightmarish sensation of falling backwards, where our schools have been turned into cemeteries, and our students and teachers into refugees. Corpses washing up on European shores. We are desperately failing the children in vulnerable situations to which SDG makes reference. In fact, we are failing to meet our promises to all the world's children and youth when it comes to education goals. We have an unfinished agenda that we must be held accountable for. On last count, UNESCO estimates there are a minimum of 124 million children from primary to lower secondary levels still out of school, with 59 million of these being of primary age. Yet, this data predates the refugee crisis of the last few years. So we believe that the actual numbers are significantly higher. All of us here believe that investment in education means investment in its medium and long-term outcomes. Linkage between education and economic developments have long since been established. As we know, UNESCO estimates that every day invested in primary education generates $10 to $15 in economic returns. We also know that every extra year of schooling can add 0.37% to country's GDP and 10% on average to an individual's earning. We need politicians to understand the power of education for their own countries, for their economies. Political will is required, as is a joint sense of moral and historic responsibility to protect and invest in education. Ladies and gentlemen, after this look at our bleak and dark present, let us shine a light of opportunity on the future of the world's youth. The recent adoption of SDGs 4 can provide, if we are serious, an historic opportunity to ensure inclusive and quality education for all and promote lifelong learning. The targets of this goal focus on all levels of education, including both primary and secondary, thereby allowing us to place special attention on the continuity between different stages of the educational process. EAC, Educate a Child, launched in 2012, took up the mandate to develop international partnerships in order to address the problems of lack of quality educational opportunities for out-of-school primary-age children. EAC works in partnership and emphasizes innovation, scale, and sustainability to facilitate the fulfillment of children's right to education. I am well aware that education journey does not and should not end with primary school, and that there is a substantial dropout rate as children transition from primary to secondary education. In fact, we know that in low-income countries, only 1 in 3 adolescents finish lower secondary school, as compared to 5 in 6 in upper middle-income countries. Therefore, it is necessary to advocate for and build effective mechanisms to ensure that smooth transition from primary to secondary education is a fundamental condition to achieving the basic education targets of SDG 4. In recognition of this opportunity and to meet the challenge of SDG 4 holistically, EAC is eager to share its research, experience, and expertise with potential partners who are willing to complement our work by providing quality post-primary education to those children who complete our programs. We encourage new partners to work with us to guarantee that all children who complete primary education have access to quality secondary education. Ladies and gentlemen, though I have confessed my disappointment, grief, and anger, I'm still hopeful that we can build a bright and better future. That's why our Young Innovators program holds a dear place in my heart, because through this program, we're attracting exceptional Arab youth and offering them the resources and the environment necessary to reach their potential in their different creative fields, a chance that we lost several times in the past. And we are fortunate to have some of these young people here with us at WISE. This brings me to a moment I look forward to every year, the announcement of the WISE Prize for Education. Our WISE Prize for Education laureates, established in 2011, embodies the spirit of WISE. They are tireless advocates for the right to education. This year's laureates is distinguished by her determination to bring education to her fellow citizens in the most adverse conditions of war and occupation, from refugee camps to secret night schools, and often at a great personal risk. She established a network of organizations that provide general education as well as public health education. While her work focuses on girls and women, it also benefits boys and men. Millions have benefited from her optimism. I will leave you now to Michelle Hussein to introduce you to this year's WISE Laureate winner, and thank you for allowing me to share my heart with you today.